Purnashriya Chaturdashi in 1977, my extremely dear godbrother Jayananda left this world. So on the disappearance days of the great acharyas or great devotees, Prabhupada always used to sing one special song by Narottam Das Thakur. So with the permission of the Vaishnavas, we'll sing that song. Because now there's very few of us, and every day it's becoming every day now, we're hearing some other godbrother, godsister has left this world. So there's only a few of us who actually had some association with Jayananda. And I was very fortunate to have his association and also to collect so many stories. So today we'll try our best to glorify Srila Jayananda Thakur. Jayanilo Premadana Karuna Prachur Heno Prabhu Kota Gela Acharya Thakur Kahamura Swarup Rupa Kaha Sanatana Kaha Dasa Rago Nata Patita Pavan Patita Pavan Kahamura Bhata Juga Kaha Kavira Eka Kale Kota Gela Gora Natara Pasani Kutivo Mata Anale Pashivo Gauranga Gunera Nidhi Kota Gili Pavo Se Sava Sangira Sange Jai Kaila Vela Se Sangana Paya Kane Narothamoda Se Sangana Paya Kane Narothamada Kande Narottamada Jayanila Premadana Karuna Prachur Karuna Prachur Eno Prabhu Kota Gela Acharya Thakur Eno Prabhu Kota Gela Jayananda Thakur Jaya Vaishnava Thakur, Jaya Vaishnava Thakur, Jaya Vaishnava Thakur, Jaya Vaishnava Thakur. Jaya Vaishnava Thakur, Jaya Vaishnava Thakur, Jaya Vaishnava Thakur, Jaya Vaishnava Thakur. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Jaya Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Jaya Jayananda Thakur, Jaya Jayananda Thakur, Jaya Jayananda Thakur, Jaya Jayananda Thakur. Ananda Gauri Vaishnavrinda ki Jai Nityalila Vishnu Vishnupada His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Ananda Gauri Vaishnavrinda ki Sad Goswami Prabhu ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Shama Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhana ki Sri Sri Krishna Balaram Mandir ki Sri Sri Gaurnitai ki Sri Sri Krishna Baldao ki Sri Sri Radha Sham Sundar Lalita Visakha ki Holy Disappearance Day of Jayananda Thakur ki Jayananda Thakur ki Jai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the Assembled Body. All glories to the Assembled Body. All glories to the Assembled Body. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glories to you, Srila Prabhupada. Oh, Andy, nice. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chaksurun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Savarandikam Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatrubhyascha kripa sindhu vaja Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So besides Srila Prabhupada and Krishna, my favorite, and Lord Chaitanya, my favorite pastimes are of Jayananda Prabhu. And he was such a dear devotee to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, I'm very proud to have such a disciple. In fact, when he disappeared, Prabhupada wrote a letter as if he was still present. Wrote it to him, although he had already passed away. Let's see, we have it here somewhere. Let's get our other eyes here. Oh, there it is. Okay. Time to refresh. My dear Jayananda, please accept my blessings. I am feeling very intensely your separation. In 1967, you joined me in San Francisco. You were driving my car and chanting Hare Krishna. You were the first man to give me some considerable contribution, $5,000, for printing my Bhagavad Gita. After that, you have rendered very favorable service to Krishna in different ways. I hope at the time of your death, you have been promoted to the eternal association of Krishna. If not, if you had any tinge of material desire, you have gone to the celestial kingdom to live with the demigods' most opulent life of material existence. From there, you can promote yourself to the spiritual world. But even if one fails to promote himself to the spiritual world, at that time, he comes down again on the surface of this globe and takes birth in a big family like a yogi or brahmana or aristocratic family, where there is again chance of reviving Krishna consciousness. But as you were hearing Krishna Kirtan, I am sure that you were directly promoted to Krishna Loka. Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvata tyaktva deham punar janma naiti mameti sorjuna. Krishna has done a great favor to you not to continue your diseased body and has given you a suitable place for your service. Thank you very much. Your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So this is an amazing letter. Nobody else got such a letter like this. So Jayananda, he grew up in a very ordinary middle-class family in America from Ohio. Ohio's like, this is a very conservative type of place where, people are not very much interested in spiritual life. They're interested in getting a car and a house and and everything else, and lots of money and so many things. And his name was Jim Core. And he went to the university and he got a degree in mechanical engineering. Now those days that was a big deal. Now you have to be in IT or something. But with the degree in mechanical engineering, you get a very nice job and you make lots of money and enjoy, so-called enjoy in this material world. But instead, he wasn't interested in all these things. Huh? Somebody asked him, why didn't you get up a nice job and make lots of money? He said, I didn't fit in with those upper crust people. Because they were only interested in making money and enjoying, so-called exploiting the resources of material nature, that's all. So he didn't fit in with that. In fact, my dear godbrother Bhakti Siddhanta, who has left us to go to Mayapur to work on the TOVP, because he's a very amazing artist. He was in Delhi doing some things, and he met some Punjabi fellow just by chance. And just by chance, somehow or other, he started talking about Jayananda. And that fellow began to ask, well, he sounds like my roommate. I was an exchange student. In the old days, they would send someone from America to learn here, and somebody would go to India to learn there. It was called exchange. So he was an exchange student. So my roommate was like that. He was always talking about God and always talking about what is the purpose of life. And I never saw him drinking. I never saw him smoking. I never saw him hanging out with girls or anything, What was his name, And Bhakti said, well, his old name was Jim Kaur. He said, oh my goodness. Now, out of all the millions, here there's 1 billion people, of all the millions of people who live in Delhi, to actually run into somebody by accident who was associated with Jayananda, that's totally, cosmic. Totally amazing. So he knew him even before when he was in college. He said he was never smoking or drinking or carrying on or any of these other, and he's always talking about God and the purpose of life. So you get a job as a taxi driver, you just drive around and, just where you're going and you have to give this much and very little interaction with people, just driving, and everything you get is cash, so in those days. So he had a job as a taxi cab driver. And somehow he moved to San Francisco because that was the place to be in those days. It was mid-60s. But even driving his taxi cab, he wasn't satisfied with life. He wanted to know what was the purpose of all this. He couldn't see this American dream and, get a car and a house and work all day and on the 55th floor and some tiny cubicle on top of this 55th floor of some building downtown in this horrible downtown. And he just wasn't into it, He was actually thinking about just committing suicide. But somehow some article in the paper caught his attention. That it talked about how some Swami from India was coming to San Francisco. And he was arriving at the airport and such flight at such a time. And the devotees, they put posters all around about it. To bring incense, bells and candles. So, these were the hippie days, so that was a big deal, incense and candles and bells and things. So, and Allen Ginsberg had, promoted Prabhupada a little bit in the San Francisco scene. So he was also there. So because he was there, all the hippies came. Practically, Jayananda was the only, we used to call him straight person. Because all the hippies, they were hips, they were hip, but he was a straight guy. He was practically only the straight guy there. And he just took one look at Srila Prabhupada and realized this is the person who can give me guidance in life. So he took the address of the temple, and that time they were on Frederick Street. And very near Haight-Ashbury, the center of the counterculture. And he started going to Prabhupada's morning classes and hearing Prabhupada speak. And everything Prabhupada said made so much sense. And sometimes Jayananda was practically the only person there because he would give his classes 7 o'clock in the morning. We were used to getting up at 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock we peek, oh, the sun is out, So sometimes he was the only person there, but he would just love to listen to Prabhupada. And so all day long he would drive people around in his taxi, and he always tell everyone Hare Krishna. That time nobody knew what Hare Krishna was, but he would tell everybody Hare Krishna, and he would come to the classes, and he decided to dedicate himself. Prabhupada at first told him, no, you keep, because nobody in the temple had any money. Somehow or other Prabhupada was, passing around a collection plate at the lectures and getting a few coins. Somehow he was maintaining. And like Prabhupada mentioned, he was the first one. He had his whole life savings, which was $5,000, which was a lot of money those days. That's like, at least, $50,000 nowadays, So he gave his entire life savings to Prabhupada so that he could make the first printing of Bhagavad Gita, that little blue Bhagavad Gita. So in Prabhupada's letter, he mentioned that you were the first one to come with some sizable contribution. So, but he didn't like, living in the material world and driving his taxi. So finally he gave up and moved into the temple, and he would do all kinds of, and since he was a taxi driver, he was also a mechanic. And those days, especially because we didn't have any money, we just buy an old car, and they were always breaking down. When we finally got a little bit opulent in material standards, Prabhupada said, no more old cars. They give too much trouble. So he was always fixing the cars. He's always covered with grease. And, his clothes was always black, and his hands were always black, and he was always under the car. And even under the car, he had a little thing, the flat board with some roller skates on it, and you could lie in it and you could roll underneath the car. So only you'd see Jayananda's feet. And people would come by, and he would be under the car preaching to them. They only saw his feet, but his voice was coming, and he was preaching about Krishna consciousness to whoever came by, and he would engage them in service. Can you pass me that wrench, And I remember there was one devotee, I haven't seen him for a long time. Jai Rishi used to come from LA. He was in San Francisco temple, or he was in LA temple. And everybody in LA used to hear there's this pure devotee in San Francisco named Jayananda. He's so pure, he's completely dedicated to Prabhupada. Pure, so he's a pure devotee. So one time he went to San Francisco for Ratha Yatra, so he was thinking, I got to meet this guy, So he was thinking pure devotee, he's completely pressed dhoti and pressed kurta and nice bead bag, and tilak and everything, and his head in the clouds. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And he went outside the temple, and he saw these two legs sticking out from underneath the car. He says, hey, Prabhu, can you hand me that wrench? And then Jayananda started preaching to him. And then he asked him, what is your name? He said, oh, Jai Rishi. And what is your name, Prabhu? He said, he rolled up from underneath the car and said, Jayananda. And he was completely covered with, old worn out clothes, completely covered with grease, hands all greasy. This was a pure devotee. But Jayananda especially loved prasadam. And he started the thing because, the government, they make this rule that especially the milk products, if they're over a certain date, then the stores can't sell them. It's illegal to sell them. So Jayananda used to put on just some old overalls and, look pretty funky to wipe up his tilak. And he'd go down to the market, and says, I'm a pig farmer. And my pigs, they love all this milk, this overdue. So he would get all this, incredible tons and tons of milk and yogurt and cottage cheese and all kinds of milk products. And every day they would have sweet rice. Sometimes there was one thing called half and half. half milk and half cream. You haven't had sweet rice until you've had it made with half and half. So he was always getting all these things, and he would go down to the wholesale markets. They were all run by Italian mafias, you know. But somehow they loved Jayananda. Jayananda always, his secret weapon, of course, was prasadam. He'd always bring prasadam with him. And since they couldn't understand Jayananda, he used to tell them his name was Johnny Ananda. You know, and he would get bananas and apples and eggplants and cauliflower, so many donations from all these guys. They loved him, you know. One time when devotee, after Jayananda left, he took over the service, and they would always say, where's Johnny Ananda? And so he's got some other service now. And one of these, you know, they're all just Italian mafia. He says, anyway, I don't know what Hare Krishna is about, but if Johnny Ananda's into it, it must be something good, because I never met any person so pure like Johnny Ananda. Because Jayananda had this way of attracting people and always encouraging people. In fact, one time, I guess Keshav was the president, and some new boy came, so he sent him to Jayananda. At that time, Jayananda was taking care of the garbage. Whatever service nobody wanted to do, then Jayananda, he loved to do that. So he was taking out all because they were spending so much money to have the garbage picked up. So they by that time they get a truck and they just put all the garbage and do it at the dump, and you know, it didn't cost so much. They saved a lot of money. So he sent this boy to work with Jayananda. And so they were doing the garbage run. And that devotee, that person, he became a devotee. He said, because Jayananda just preached to him and encouraged him all the way, you know, down to the dump and everything. And he said, boy, if the garbage man in this place is so happy, what about the other devotees? So he became a devotee. That was Jayananda. He had this way of affecting people. And then, of course, since it was San Francisco, and you know, Malati tells a wonderful story how she brought, with a 5-finger discount, she brought Jagannath. So San Francisco became New Jagannath Puri, so then there was some talk about Ratha Yatra. And they, you know, you can see those pictures in the Leelamrit, you know, they just got an old flatbed truck and put the deities one on each, 3 sides, you know, one, you know, in the front and one on the side, one on the other side. But they decided, you saw the pictures of the Rathas in Puri, so they decided to make a Ratha Yatra, because he was a mechanical engineer. And so he was making these, he decided to make these Ratha Yatras, real Rath. First they just had one Rath, but then they made 3 eventually. And one devotee said that Jayananda asked me to come with him. And Jayananda went all over the town, and he saw where there was some lumber lying around. He would see where they were, you know, they have these big, gigantic spools like this, but, you know, that they wrap up the cables. But those make very wonderful, you break that off, and you get very wonderful wheels. So he would see where the big cable spools were, and he would see everything all day, but he would never get anything. Then at night, he'd, you know, get that devotee, he was about to take rest. He said, no, come on, we got to take delivery. It's called midnight auto supply. Jayananda he couldn't stand to waste any money, so he would go around at night and he'd see where there was some lumber just lying around, you know, he'd pick it up and he'd grab those big, gigantic spools and put them in the truck, and he'd bring all the stuff back ready for making the Ratha Yatra. And then he was building these carts, and then there was a problem because they wanted to make big, tall carts, and there's always, you know, especially those days, nowadays everything's underground, but they had all the telephone wires and electric wires. So he was an engineer, so he made this dome that would go up and down and up and down. And he would, he made these carts, and he would engage everybody. Even drunks would come by somehow or other. He just knew how to engage people in Krishna consciousness. One time, he was working in San Francisco building the cart, and some young hippie boy came by, tall, skinny fellow, and Jayananda said, you ever done any hammer work? I said, well, gee, no, I haven't. To here, I'm going to hold this nail. I want you to hit it right on the head. I'm going to hold it, but you got to hit it right on the head, So the boy took a hammer and he, bang. And Jayananda said, wow, you sure you weren't a carpenter before? That was really expert, the way you hit that. Because this was Jayananda. He always encouraged people. He never had, if you wanted to be around Jayananda and criticize somebody, he would disappear. And if you want to be around Jayananda and praise Jayananda, he would also disappear. He couldn't tolerate praise for himself. He couldn't tolerate criticism of anyone. And he was only encouraging. So he said, wow, no, you hit that like a real pro. Now, you hold the, I guess first he held the nail. He had the devotee hold the nail and he hit it. He says, now you hit the nail. I'm going to hold it. You hit it, He said, wow, you're a natural. You sure you weren't a carpenter before? He said, here, this whole row here, we need to nail these things down, So that boy was banging and banging and banging. You know who he became? Jayapataka Maharaj. That was Jayananda. And like I said, he couldn't stand to waste anything. He would wear these cloth. It wasn't actually cloth, it was just holes held together by threads. You could see his underwear and everything through it and everything. And devotees were embarrassed, it was all dirty and black and full of holes. And practically it was just holes held together by threads. So they told him, you got to go down. There was a place called the Salvation Army. And you could go there and you could buy a pair of pants for, 25 cents, which was nothing in America, even in those days. And you could get a shirt for a dime. So he went down there. The devotees forced him. They gave him some money. He went down there. And he just said, how can I waste this money on myself? This is Prabhupada's money. How can I waste it on myself? So what he did was they have a room where you can go and you try on cloth to see if it fits and everything. So he went in there and then he pulled his old cloth over top of it and tried to walk out of the store. But naturally his old cloth was just holes, so everybody could see what he was doing. So they grabbed him and they called the police and they arrested him. They put him out on, I guess he got out on bail. Then finally he came to the trial. And the judge said, well, do you plead guilty or not guilty? I said, well, Your Honor, I'd like to say something first. He said, all right. You see, Your Honor, everything we do is for God. And all the money that we have, we use it in God's service. And, the devotees, they wanted me to buy some new cloth. But Your Honor, this is God's money. How can I spend it? I couldn't do it. Your Honor, I just couldn't spend it on myself, because this is God's money. And the policeman who was there said, all right, I'll pay for it. And the judge slammed down his thing. All right, case dismissed. That was Jayananda. He affected people so much. Just like to put on the Ratha Yatra, of course, in any big city in America, you have to get some permits and everything. So Jayananda was very expert. He would go down and meet the police and whatever authorities he had to meet, and finally get the mayor to sign. In fact, eventually they made it an official holiday in San Francisco, Ratha Yatra Day. Became an official government holiday. So after Jayananda left, one devotee, he went around to get all the permissions and everything. So we got the police and all the other departments. And finally he has to go to the mayor. And this is long, this is way back. This is in, the beginning of the 80s. And that time the mayor of San Francisco was a woman. So this is way back in the 80s. This was a big deal. Women were, in posts like that, So she was a heavy-duty lady. At that time it was a man's world. And in a man's world, she was the mayor of San Francisco. She had to be really tough woman. In those days, it was very difficult. And so the guy came to get her signature. And she said, "Where's Johnny Ananda?" The devotee said, "Well, he passed away." Now here's this lady who made it to the top in a man's world, very tough lady, right in front of a stranger. She broke down on her desk and started sobbing. That was Jayananda. He affected people so much. And he loved prasadam. And his favorite was peanut butter halava. And whoever worked on the Ratha Yatra carts, he always made sure there was a big supply of peanut butter halava. And one time, just to give you an idea of Jayananda's transcendental nature and his love for prasadam, one time, in San Francisco, there's proper San Francisco, then there's a big bay on the other side, there's Berkeley and a few other places. And I can't remember just now what the name, there was some city next to Berkeley where there was a penitentiary, the jail. So they somehow managed to get a program in the jail. So just to give you the whole idea of what things were like in those days, Jayananda had this pickup truck with a big paneled van on the back, So all the devotees could sit inside the backside, and then the cab was separate, but there was a window. But of course that window was gone between the drivers and the people sitting inside the van. And there was no gas pedal. Jayananda just tied a string around his toe and tied it onto the lever that was there. And somehow with 2 feet, he was managing the clutch and the brake and the gas pedal. This is the type of things that were going on those days. So anyway, so he calls up Danavir, because we used to call Danavir Mr. Enthusiasm. He's also a little bit gullible those days. So they called up Danavir and said, "We got a program over there on your side of the bay, and we want you to make lots and lots of halava with lots and lots of butter." Because in the old days, we didn't use ghee, we used butter. And I tell you, butter halava's got a different taste than ghee halava. And put lots and lots of strawberries, Make a ton of halava, for this program. Then we'll go to the jail. So then the San Francisco devotees jumped in the back of the van, and they drove over to Berkeley. They picked up all the halava and all the Danavir and all the Berkeley devotees, and they're driving down the road. And Jayananda says to Keshava, "Keshava, I bet the devotees would be really enthusiastic to distribute this prasadam if they had a taste." "Hey, Jayananda, that's a great idea. Hey, back there, pass out plates to everyone and send a couple up here, So there's Jayananda, trying to eat halava and drive this truck with the situation we just described, And then all of a sudden, Jayananda says, "Keshava, Danavir really made nice halava. Maybe we should have some more." "Hey, Jayananda, that's a good idea. Hey, pass out some more and send 2 plates up here." So eventually, they kept, refilling the plates, and suddenly Danavir looked in the pot, and there was just crumbs sticking to the side of the pot. And Danavir, "Oh my God, that prasadam that was meant for the fallen conditioned souls. We're so fallen. We've eaten all of the prasadam. There's nothing left, And just then they drove up to the prison. And the prison guard came and he said, "You don't have any foodstuff in here. You know it's illegal to bring foodstuff inside the prison." He said, "No, sir, we don't have any food in this van." That was Jayananda. Eventually, he decided that they should have, that New York is the most important city, at least in the material world. We know that, of course, Vrindavan is the most important city in the world. And the most important street is Fifth Avenue. Of course, we know Kunj Gali is the most important street. But in the material world, they think Fifth Avenue is it. So Jayananda got this idea that we got to have Ratha Yatra in New York on Fifth Avenue. And somehow they actually managed to get all the permits and everything. And it's still going on. It's still one of the biggest Ratha Yatras in America. If you go, we went there last year and we were just amazed. Even devotees from Bombay, even P.L. Sethi's son, Braj Mohan, he flew over to join the Ratha Yatra. And even it was raining the whole time. It was thousands of people were there. Everybody just had their umbrellas. And we went down Fifth Avenue with all our umbrellas. It was amazing. So anyway, it was the first time. So Jayananda was building these Ratha Yatra carts for first Ratha Yatra festival in New York. It is 1976. And somehow at that time, he contracted a disease called lymphatic cancer. But he didn't tell anybody. And he was working away. And when there was Ratha Yatra time and time to build the carts, Jayananda, he would work whole day and nobody would ever see him sleep. The last 3 days, nobody ever saw him sleep. In fact, I remember Jai Rishi told me that one time in San Francisco, they were working all night, and he came back to the ashram, he crawled into a closet and crawled into a sleeping bag. He said, "He'll never find me here." And then later in the evening, Jayananda came, opened up the closet, said, "Jai Rishi, come on, let's go. We got a lot of work to do." So no one would ever see Jayananda sleep. And he was doing, So they were building these carts in San Francisco. And in fact, it was the day before. And Jayananda wanted to check out to see if the mechanism that would move the dome up and down was working properly. So, and everybody was, they were just in this open lot, building these carts, and people were watching, from all the big, tall apartment buildings. Because everybody in New York lives up, In California, I used to tell, "Hey, Mom, I'm going out, going out to play, But in New York, you say, "Oh, Mom, I'm going down." So everybody was up in their apartments watching these people building this funny thing, So they cranked it all up, raised up and somehow or other, big gust of wind, because now they're finding in these cities, they made all these big skyscraper buildings, and it just directs all the wind in strange ways, and they have all kinds of problems. So huge wind came down through all the lines of apartment buildings, and the whole thing came crashing down. All the tubes were bent, and some things were broken. And it's, it's evening time, it's 6 o'clock in the evening. Tomorrow is Ratha Yatra. And Jayananda looked at that. There was one just regular, ordinary American Karmi couple they were watching. They came down and they were crying because they saw how hard these boys worked to build this thing. And Jayananda said, "No, it's gonna be up and ready for Ratha Yatra tomorrow." And he got everybody, and they worked all night, and somehow they put it all back together. At 6 o'clock in the morning on Fifth Avenue, the cart was ready. So during this time, Jayananda, he was having all types of problems with his body, but he wasn't telling anyone. And one time, he came back late to the ashram, and he was walking down the hallway, and he was bent completely over like this. And just at that time, Keshav Bharati happened to walk out of a room to go to the bathroom, and he saw Jayananda. He said, "Hey, Jayananda, what's the matter?" Jayananda stood up. He says, "No, man, I saw you. What's the matter?" Jayananda would never, he was too busy doing things, you know. So he said, "Well, you know, I know what I saw." He said, "Nothing." He said, No, I know what I saw." So he lifted up his pant leg and he showed him all these strange black marks, you know, sores all over his body, and he showed him his back. Jayananda said, I'll tell you, but you can't tell anyone till after Ratha Yatra. So after, he says, "All right, I promise." So then he showed him all the things. So then Ratha Yatra, the day of Ratha Yatra, you'll see Jayananda. In fact, we get darshan of Jayananda every day. You know where we get darshan of Jayananda every day? Right in Prabhupada's Samadhi. Every day when I'm going around, underneath Balaram, you see one person with his left hand raised in the sky, the other one holding the cart. That's Jayananda. Every day you can get darshan of Jayananda Prabhu. The site of the Samadhi where the Ratha Yatra is, that's Jayananda underneath Baladev. So he was, that scene comes from there. He was going down the street. This is the epitome of, you know, Prabhupada started on Mahatma Gandhi Road with this tiny little Ratha Yatra. Now he's going down Fifth Avenue in New York. Fifth Avenue in New York, the most important city and the most important street, with this big Ratha Yatra cart. This was so ecstatic. So you see Jayananda there. And then the rest of the day, they got to Washington Square Park, and nobody saw Jayananda anywhere. And finally, they're looking everywhere for Jayananda. Finally, somebody looked way up in the top of the cart, where he figured out where no one would ever look for him. There was two boards like this, you know. He just lay out flat, because 3 days he hadn't had any sleep. He just crawled up in the roof of the Ratha Yatra and lay down on these two boards and went to sleep. So the next day, Keshav Bharati says, "All right, I kept my side of the bargain. I didn't tell anybody there's something wrong with you. Now you got to go to the doctor. You promised me." So they went to the doctor. They found out he had leukemia. And that practically it's terminal. There's nothing you can do about it, especially those days. So anyway, you know, so he called Keshav Bharati, he told him that this is a thing. He said, "I want you to come and bring lots and lots of Simply Wonderfuls." He said, "Look at this guy. He just found out he's going to die of this weird disease, and he wants Simply Wonderfuls." He said, "Bring down lots and lots of Simply Wonderfuls." So Keshav Bharati came with lots and lots of Simply Wonderfuls. And then Jayananda, he was on a drip, you know. So he got out of bed, he hung onto the thing that holds the saline solution, and just went down to the TV room, turned off the TV, and he started preaching to all the people in the hospital who were sitting there just watching TV. And here's Jayananda. And then he had Keshav Bharati distribute Simply Wonderfuls to everyone. There's somebody just heard that he's going to die from this strange disease. The first thing he does is have a preaching program. That was Jayananda. So then he decided they have to have Ratha Yatra in Los Angeles. And that was a big thing because San Francisco was very envious that this is, you know, we're the Ratha Yatra. But Jayananda was determined that we're going to have Ratha. He couldn't build the carts anymore. He was very, very sick by this time. He had gone to Mexico because there were certain treatments that are illegal here, but somehow they didn't work on Jayananda, so he just resigned to his fate. But he would just be on the phone, and he just would collect money from all his friends, and somehow or other he got it together, and they built this cart. And he was doing it. He was just calling on the phone, even though he could hardly stand. He was very, very sick, but he just managed to inspire everyone to build this cart. Ratnabhushan was still there making these Ratha Yatra carts, inspired by Jayananda. And one day, they came to Jayananda. They said, Prabhu, we got a problem with the carts. And we know only you can figure it out. So you got to come down and see. So they put Jayananda in a wheelchair, and they brought him down to the parking lot where the carts were being made. And whole LA temple was there. It was Jayananda's birthday. They knew if they told him that they had a birthday party planned, he would never come. So they lied to him that you have to come, there's a problem. And he came down, the whole LA community was there. And they made a birthday cake in the shape of a Ratha Yatra, a Rath. And Jayananda, he had no energy whatsoever. Somehow or other, he pushed himself up from his wheelchair, and he stood up and he began preaching about the importance of Ratha Yatra and how it's so amazing, and we're going to benedict all the fallen souls with the darshan of Lord Jagannath. He was just preaching and preaching, and even they had brought his parents. So you can see the pictures, he's standing there holding on to this wheelchair and preaching about Ratha Yatra. His parents are standing behind him with tears streaming down their faces. And finally, he just collapsed into that wheelchair. And then he took a knife and he cut up the Ratha Yatra, the birthday cake, and handed out prasadam to everyone. This was Jayananda. So one time somebody asked Jayananda how to make advance in Krishna consciousness. He said, I don't know, I'm too busy doing service to think about it. That was Jayananda. Anyway, on this day, in May of 1977, one devotee in the Pujari department, it was Mangal Artik time, and he picked up the old garland of Lord Jagannath. He thought, I'll take this garland to Jayananda. Nobody had told me to do it. He just suddenly was inspired to take the prasadi garland of Lord Jagannath to Jayananda. So he walked across the streets, because LA, they practically own the whole block. They have all the apartment buildings all around, all the devotees. Wonderful community. So he walked across the street, and they had, Prabhupada's kirtan going on 24 hours a day in Jayananda's ear and everything. And anyway, he walked into Jayananda's apartment. Across the street, the conch shell was blowing to signal the beginning of Mangal Arati. And just at that moment, he walked through the door, the conch shell was blowing, and Jayananda opened his mouth, said, Hare Krishna, and left this world. The devotee put Lord Jagannath's garland. That's how he left this world on this day in 1977. So we can take a lot of inspiration from Jayananda. Whenever Prabhupada would come, all the devotees would want to be with Prabhupada. And Prabhupada would always ask, where's Jayananda? He was always busy doing some service. So they have to call Jayananda. He said, no, I'm too dirty to come. No, Prabhupada wants to see you. This was Jayananda. He will always be, Prabhupada always has to ask, where's Jayananda? Where's Jayananda? Prabhupada loved Jayananda so much. So we can take a lot of inspiration from Jayananda and determine that we're going to push on this Krishna consciousness somehow or another against all whatever impediments are there. Somehow we're just going to go on and on and on and on. And every year we get to remember all these wonderful pastimes of Jayananda. There was a wonderful website called Jayananda Thakur, and I went there. Now it's not working. You don't know anything, huh? So many wonderful pastimes. They're just a few little drops, the ocean of pastimes of Jayananda. And Prabhupada ordered that Jayananda's picture be on the Ratha Yatra cart. Wherever in the world we're doing Ratha Yatra, Jayananda's picture should be there. And that every year we should observe one day in memory of Jayananda. So, I don't know if anybody else has any pastimes of Jayananda. I have one personal pastime. I was president of Portland, Oregon, in northwest corner of America. And we came down for Ratha Yatra. And Jayananda walked up to me and put his arm around me like a big brother. Because sometimes he had traveled around on the Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party on the buses. So he'd been to almost every temple. And he remembered Portland, Oregon had very nice prasadam. So he came up, put his arm around me like older brother, and said, Deena Bandhu, we got 1 ton of potatoes and 1 ton of cauliflower. And it has to be cooked tonight to give out tomorrow in the Ratha Yatra. And we know you're a good cook, so we want you to do it. And at that time they had this steamer. It had 2 compartments. You could put 50 kilos of potatoes in one compartment, seal it, and then put 50 kilos. It was double walls, so the steam would run around inside. And there was this huge bowl like this with a double jacket, so the steam ran around inside that. So we put 50 kilos in top, 50 kilos in the bottom, then throw it out into this big bowl, and then mix in all the sour cream and tomatoes and bell peppers and throw in all the spices and salt and everything. The whole night I was cooking. 2 tons of prasadam, more than 2 tons, but just 2 tons of potatoes and 2 tons of cauliflower, what to speak of all the tomatoes and everything else. By morning time, I was cooked. Huh? We had a whole party somehow or other. I remember one time we were all staying in Berkeley Temple somehow or other, and Jayananda got all these plums. In Hindi we call aloo bukar, potato with the fever, because they're red. And we were pitting all these plums to make plum chutney. And those pits inside, they got a little, like serrated edge, But after a couple of hours, your thumbs were completely ruined. And we cooked this, somewhere he got a whole donation of fresh plums, so we cooked with this plum chutney. But we had to pit them first. You have any pastimes?
Oh, but you made me really hungry.
I guess nobody's here anymore. Bhaktisiddhanta was the only, me and Bhaktisiddhanta used to tell these stories. So since everybody's hungry, and Jayananda, somebody has Radhakund. Where's Bhakta Mike? Send Bhakta Mike back.
I remember one time, Jayananda Prabhu was very tall, and Srila Prabhupada said, just see, Jayananda, he looks just like Lord Chaitanya.
All right, since everybody's hungry, we have peanut butter halava. Mahaprasad has been offered to the deities and it's been offered to Jayananda, so it's Mahaprasad peanut butter halava. So everybody can come up forward and make 2 lines, one for the ladies, one for the gents, and we'll serve out peanut butter halava prasad for everyone. Jayananda Thakur ki, Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanande.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama